Hello everyone, it's me, Riffraff Hornhelm, and I'm back again with another presentation from the Dwarven Vault, and today we have a monster review. Today's monster review is the IMP. Yeah, the IMP. What? I know. Believe it or not, this qualifies as a turnable undead creature. It's not necessarily really so much undead since it comes from the nether regions. And it comes to us from the original Monster Manual as used with Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, Basic Dungeons & Dragons, especially Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, which today is referred to as 1E. So let's talk about the Imp, that famous critter that is such a boon to certain evil users of magic. Now, you're saying the Imp? Well, remember, within the context of being turnable, lesser devils are included. And this is one of the least devils. It's only 2+2 hit dice. And it's armor class 2. But it also has a 23% resistance to magic. Doesn't sound like much, but that's a pretty reasonable chance for something this small and this weak. Now, the Imp is most commonly known as being a familiar for a wizard or an evil cleric, something of that nature. They are lawful evil. They only stand about 2 feet tall. And they look kind of like a miniature devil, but they have, well, as you can see, they have this cartoonish nose and so forth. So an imp is certainly very distinctive. Now, our main interest in this series is really whether or not they're turnable. And yes, they are. They are turnable, but as a special. Even though they're only 2+2 in terms of hit dice, they are still a lesser devil, and all lesser devils that are turnable fall under the category of special. So, where are you going to run into an imp? I mean, these come from, I think it's Archeron and places like this, and they're summoned and used as a familiar. Most commonly with a magic user, but oftentimes with an evil cleric, it's also an option. Like many evil creatures, this can only be struck by magic weapons, I think silver as well, and a lot of things don't work on them. Cold, electricity, but things like hold person and a very common list of spells that won't work with it. I mean, do refer to it if you're going to have combat with an imp to get all the very specifics, because that's what doing your homework will help you with in terms of being ready. Now, one of the things an imp can do is it can change into a number of different creatures at will. It can polymorph. Among those are like a giant rat and a spider and a goat, and I think there's 1 or 2 other ones as well. And it can do that whenever it needs to. It only has 1 attack, but its attack, depending on what form it's in, could be anything from a small dagger in its normal form, or it could be the tail of one of the creatures, or the stinger on the spider. In any case, if it attacks you, then you have to make a save versus magic, or it's poison and you're dead, which is pretty effective right there. All the magic that it has is, like I said, fairly common to lower level devils. A lot of it is immunity to things like suggestion, charm, hold, things like that, as well as being able to straight out avoid damage from cold and electricity. Pretty potent stuff, along with that 23% chance of magic resistance. Now, imps themselves are only of average intelligence, but as a familiar, they're able to tap back into the netherworld to a higher level devil to get questions answered once a week for whomever they're serving as a imp for in the role of a familiar. Now, there are a number of specific issues for this creature that deal with it being a familiar. What that does for the master, also the risk it puts it at, and whatever magical abilities it picks up. Um, I would, rather than make this a longer review than it needs to be, if you're interested in that specific aspect, please refer back to the monster manual under this specific creature, the imp, to find that. It's the last paragraph in the description. Um, an imp is very rarely going to come up as a familiar, mainly because it's lawful evil. And unless you have a party that can accept a lawful evil or very evil character to control this imp, it would then not be typical for you to run into them as an associate, more likely as an opponent. So, as an opponent, though, with everything that it can do, um, it's not really that strong, but it can be very annoying, and it can be a big help to whoever it is acting as a familiar for. So, I went out to the greater Hornhelm community and asked them about the imp. As you might expect, as dwarves, we don't necessarily run into them that often. Amongst the dungeon masters that I spoke to who have used the imp before, they all said that, it's about a solid 3. And I've never used them as a opponent, but I have dealt with them with players who have had them as familiars. I'd say, yeah, a 3 is a pretty good summation. I would agree with that. Talking to players, there was only a few who'd actually run into the imp as a opponent, and they said pretty much the same thing, about a 3. One of them said a 3.5. So really, not the most difficult of the undead. And once again, it can be turned, but because it gets turned as a special, the minimum level at which you can do this is 8th level cleric. So you're gonna need a pretty potent cleric to even have a shot. And at 8th level, they best roll a 20. So, that, my friends, is the imp. We hope you found this interesting, educational, entertaining, all that kind of good stuff. If you did, please be so kind as to leave us a like. Uh, Consider subscribing. Share with your friends. Come back and see us again real soon. We very much appreciate your kind support. Take care, everyone, and remember, dwarves rock!